Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jerry, and today I have my first rendition of the mock draft. It's a little late to do a first rendition. Yes, I do understand that, but I wanted to get one out. I was just changing my setup and hadn't gotten around to it yet. I've been looking at a lot of the teams where I think they're going to go, and I do think there's going to be a lot of trades, or at least three or four. Maybe not at least three or four, but I think there could be around three trades in this draft. Just with there is a decent amount of teams that could change position. So when I get to that point, I will talk about where I believe there's going to be a trade. But for this mock draft, there's just going to be no trades. So mock draft Monday it is. Don't forget to like the video. Comment down below who you think the biggest bust is going to be in this draft. I'm curious to see who you think that is going to be, whether it be, one of the quarterbacks at the top, maybe one of the receivers. But let me know down below, and then subscribe. We're trying to hit 500 subscribers at about 260 right now. But let's get right into it. I feel like this is the easiest one to make. Caleb Williams to the Chicago Bears just seems to be inevitable at this point. Then the Commanders, this is where you can start to have a conversation. Some people talked about Drake May. Others, with Jaden Daniels all the way down here is becoming a favorite. There's even people talking about way down here J.J. McCarthy becoming a favorite. And he's actually, the last time I checked, he was the second favorited for odds, which doesn't make sense to me. But I am, because I'm going based on talent, actually not talent necessarily, but where I believe the team will go. I am going to go with Jaden Daniels here. I think Drake May definitely could be the better quarterback. I just don't know if that's as good of a situation. Jaden Daniels does have a lot more snaps and a lot more throws under his belt, and I think he will transfer over to the NFL a little bit better. I think Drake May could have a higher ceiling with all the talent that he has, but I think he would benefit from sitting for a year. He can kind of go kind of haywire. He's a bit more of a gunslinger, closer to like that Josh Allen, even Matt Stafford potentially type. A lot of Justin Herbert comps as well. But Drake May to me fits in a lot better to the New England Patriots, so that makes it very easy. We get three quarterbacks right off the board, pretty much as expected. I think the only way you don't see the Patriots going with a quarterback is if they trade back, which they've clearly been trying to hype up their value by saying they're open to it, but I really don't think they are. I think with the quarterbacks available in this draft, I do think they're going to take one, especially having Jacoby Brissett, who you could use in a little limbo year where they clearly need to get better at that position, but Drake May could sit. I think it's a great situation for him, so I go Drake May, and this is just obvious. Marvin Harrison Jr. goes to the Cardinals. This is where he goes in a lot of mock drafts more recently because of how much the Cardinals have talked about being willing to trade back with all the quarterbacks. You definitely could see a team trade up to go J.J. McCarthy at this point, mainly the Raiders and the Vikings who have been talked about it. You could probably see the Giants too, though. I wouldn't count them out of it either. But yeah, then we move on to the Chargers, who I think Chargers they have running back, receiver, tight end, no offensive lineman on their list of needs. But there is a guy who is their head coach, Jim Harbaugh, who continues to highlight how important the trenches are, building the offensive line, making sure that you have it right there. And with Joe Alt being a guy there that is really, I think of Eric Fisher, who went first overall to the Chiefs in 2012 or whatever that draft was. And I go, this, like, Joe Alt would probably be, if it wasn't such a stacked quarterback wide receiver class, like even potentially next year, like if a Joe Alt prospect were to come out next year, he could go first overall. And with the ability to get a guy like that there, I think that is who they would pick. Now, I actually don't think that's the best situation. I think you very easily could go Malik Neighbors there because they need wide receivers. They just don't even have them on their roster, much less any good ones. Yes, Justin Herbert's going to be good, but you lose your starting tight end in Gerald Everett, you lose Keenan Allen, you lose Mike Williams. So now they're kind of working with scraps, and it's not making for a great situation for Jim Harbaugh to come into. But I think he would appreciate having a guy like Joe Alt, 6'9", 330 or whatever he is, and able to still guard those smaller edge rushers, which people have talked about potentially being a problem for him, but I think he can do it. I think Joe Alt's a great prospect, and I think the Chargers go there. I also think they could trade out. I've seen some with the Jets. I think any of these teams, with J.J. McCarthy still being there, could definitely trade up if they wanted to get value. Might even be able to get another first. But I'm going Joe Alt. I think they're going to stick and pick the tackle that is a tier above everybody else. Leaving Malik Neighbors is an easy pick for the Giants. Not much to talk about there. They need wide receiver help more than anybody. I think with a lot of those top quarterbacks being gone and having to deal with the Daniel Jones contract, excuse me, you probably would want to go quarterback here, or even potentially trade up to like 3 with the Patriots to get Drake May if he's available. And then he could even sit behind Daniel Jones, who you could argue is a fairly similar style quarterback as well, being a bigger guy that's still mobile, a little bit more raw on the throwing end. But yeah, I think Giants would have to go Malik Neighbors at this point, just because of the talent that he showed at LSU. He's definitely, if Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't there, I think between him and Rome Odunze is a clear top pick in this draft, and that is where they end up going. So then you move on to the Tennessee Titans, who probably would have loved to take Joe Alt. Talise Fuaga's showing up as the next ranked. I think they could go him. I think they could go Troy Fatanu. It's probably too easy. I think Olu Fashanu has fell, and he shouldn't have. I think he's worthy of being taken earlier. But looking at the needs, I think, I don't know why wide receiver is a top need, because they just they now have DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley, so I don't see them going that route. I think you kind of, at this point, you probably have to go Talise Fuaga. They definitely need help on the offensive line. They're really hoping Joe Alt is there, and he's not. And then you make it to pick 8 with the Falcons, and no defensive players off the board yet. And I think they're going to take the guy that just dominated the combine with his speed and athleticism, and even strength, still strong for being one of the faster edge rush prospects in the draft. And I think people are saying Dallas Turner could be better than Will Anderson. Will Anderson didn't have any amazing rookie year, but he did have a good rookie season. And I think being defensive line is a big need for the Falcons. I think if somehow Dallas Turner goes off earlier, I guess he could technically go to the Titans if they believe he's going to be more valuable to their team than Talise Fuaga. I think you probably see them go corner here. Could go Quinion Mitchell, I think, is probably where they would go. But again, a little early for him. So could also see a trade back there, I guess, in the scenario where the picks don't fall properly for the Falcons, as they do fall properly for the Chicago Bears, and they're able to pair Rome Odunze with Caleb Williams. Now, I personally, if you've seen my page, you know I do a lot of Bears content, and I think that the Bears would actually benefit from trading back and then choosing between Verse and Laiatu Latu. That would be my personal favorite for what the Bears would do, but I also think if Rome Odunze's there, it's really difficult to pass up on him. I've said in past videos in regards to the Bears in the wide receiver room that it wouldn't be as beneficial just to take a wide receiver 3 because of Shane Waldron and how often he uses the 21 personnel on offense. But you're still going to need a wide receiver 3. And if you look at Jackson Smith and Jigba, who was the wide receiver 3 for the Seahawks last year in Waldron's offense, he still did put out a lot of production, and I think they could get some value from Rome Odunze. It also leaves them open to either getting a little bit lower contract for Keenan Allen if they don't want to stick around, or at least have more of a safety blanket there. But I do see edge rusher or even interior defensive line as a bigger need for the Bears. But then we move on to the Jets, where Brock Bowers is just kind of sitting there for them. I think you're kind of in a win now, and I think Brock Bowers getting a lot of comps to George Kittle, I think makes the most sense here. And I feel that he is really needed there. They need a tight end. They already have a couple weapons, but he's going to help you in the blocking department. He's going to be a huge vertical threat downfield. So Brock Bowers to the Jets to try to round out this attempt at a super team to make a Super Bowl run with 1 year left of Aaron Rodgers. And then just a legendary moment for the Minnesota Vikings where, they wanted to trade up to get J.J. McCarthy probably at 4 or 5, maybe even potentially 3 if they thought they had to. But they get blessed with being able to just stick and pick J.J. McCarthy at 11, which I think this is probably the best fit. I think between J.J. McCarthy and Drake May, those are the best fits for Minnesota, as you have Kevin O'Connell, who I believe can develop a quarterback, being able to show promise with even guys like Josh Dobbs last year midseason. Not that he really developed well, but he at least was able to be inserted into the offense and have some success early on. I think even being able to sit behind Sam Darnold, who isn't necessarily a great quarterback in the NFL, I think being able to sit a year like J.J. McCarthy and Drake May could, I think they would benefit from that a lot. You've got a lot of weapons in Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, Aaron Jones now. So you've got a lot of weapons over there, and I think that would help them a lot. Their offensive line's kind of solidified with Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill. So I really like what the Vikings are putting together. I think they definitely could go edge rusher or cornerback would be the other obvious option. I think also could go corner at 23 here. But I like what the Vikings are doing, and I think J.J. McCarthy would fit in sitting behind Sam Darnold. So then we move on to the Broncos, who at 12 probably would have wanted one of those top guys, and probably would have wanted Brock Bowers too at this point. I think that would have been definitely would have been a good move, and you could say to the Jets, might not be the biggest need. I guess for long term, but the Jets need a tight end, and I think with Brock Bowers falling that far, I think it makes sense. I think Brock Bowers probably goes here if the Jets decide to take one of the tackles like Troy Fautanu. I think it's early for Olu or J.C. Latham, Marius Mims, all these tackles that are projected in the first round. But I definitely think you could see the Jets go tackle, but I think if Brock Bowers is there, they take him. But we're talking about the Broncos here, where I think they need help in the cornerback room. I'm looking at these corners, none off the board yet. So I think this is where you go Quinion Mitchell. They have Surtain, but they still need a second guy. They need help in that department. You've got a lot of the big names off the board. You have the opportunity to take the first corner off the board at the 12th pick and help out. I think it's too early to take a center and an interior offensive lineman, so you're probably not going there. Tackle, they're okay, and I don't think you'd want to take one of those. So I think the opportunity to take the first one off the board is why they do that. And then you move on to the Raiders, where you see quarterback as a top need. You got some offensive line, interior defensive line. I think you could go Jerzon Newton here. I think you probably could go. You're probably not going Verse or Latu. Actually, they got Max Crosby and the other guy who's slipping my mind, tall, skinny guy. I can't think of his name right now, but I don't think they're going edge rusher. I think it's probably too. Yeah, I think at this point you're probably. I think for the Raiders, I'm gonna go Michael Penix. I think they want a quarterback. I actually think Aiden O'Connell deserves a chance, but I don't. There's just not like that big, like, obviously you got some big edge names up here still, and you definitely could go tackle. I definitely could see any of these teams going tackle. I think maybe the Raiders go, like, if Talise Fuaga was there still, or obviously if Joe Alt somehow slipped that far, I think you could see that happen. But I think because the tackles are off the board, I don't know if they like any of these defensive line. I think Jerzon Newton and probably Byron Murphy more than Jerzon Newton, but I think Byron Murphy you could see go there. But I'm going with Penix. I think they believe in him, and I think he could be a good quarterback in the NFL, although his system in college didn't really suggest that. I think he could, just based off of how many times he threw the ball. He had to throw the ball a lot, and he did it accurately. He can make every throw. So we'll have to see how he does in the pros, but I like Penix there. Moving on to the Saints, though, I think this is another spot you could probably go tackle. Big need for them over there. Not really a top receiver left. Could be a trade back scenario. I think they could trade up even for Odunze if the Bears were looking to trade back. I've seen some mock drafts with that. But I think at this point, I'm kind of between Fautanu and Olu. I think you could also go interior defensive line. Now that I think about it, you might go Byron Murphy here. I'm going to go with Olu Fashanu. I think he's the better option. And they need a tackle. Olu was looked at as one of the top prospects, and then you kind of have Talise Fawaga move past him. Joe Alt was always up there. But Olu Fashanu is a great prospect out of Penn State, so I have him going there. And then you move on to the Colts, who are another team that I think definitely would trade back in this situation. I think unless you want to go Terrion Arnold, I think that's probably what I'm going to do here. Don't really have a huge need at tackle, and you're probably not super pleased with Troy Fatanu at 15. I think it's just a little early for him. So you'd probably be trading back in that situation. So for the Colts, I'm going to go Terrion Arnold. I think cornerback is their biggest need. And with that being their biggest need, there's just not a lot else here that I would take. I think you could go Cooper DeJean. He's ranked high for PFF here, but I think you see their average draft position. He's not really going to go there. I think I probably could have him going to the Eagles, or maybe even the Packers down here is more likely where I would see them go. See Cooper DeJean go. But moving on to the Seahawks, we're getting to the point where we're gonna need to get some of these edge rushers off the board. I think it's tough because I think Laiatu Latu is the better all around pass rusher, and I think that I think Laiatu Latu could be the pick here. I think he would probably fit the scheme better than Jared Verse, but I'm very on the fence. I think they also could go Troy Fatanu. I think the Seahawks need offensive line help, and I think that's probably who they want. I mean, maybe they would have wanted Olu or any of these guys higher, but I have seen Seahawks to be high on Fatanu, so I'm going to take Troy Fatanu here. Very tempted to pick edge rusher. I think Troy Fatanu you could also slide over to guard potentially. So I think that offers a little extra value, and because you can do that, I think you go with that there. The Jaguars, another team probably not taking an edge rusher. With these edge rushers falling, Jared Verse between Verse and Laiatu Latu. But as far as the Jaguars go, I think a couple different options. I think they would have wanted to go corner. I think you could see Terrion Arnold go. Obviously, he got taken away. Cooper DeJean. I guess Cooper DeJean could go here too. I think it's too early for a center or a guard. If you're looking at none of these needs are any good anyway. But I think you probably going to go Cooper DeJean here. I keep wanting him to fall back here to the Eagles or the Packers. I really like him to the Eagles or the Packers, but I think with no trade ups, you kind of you get left with a little bit of a mess here. So I'm going to go Cooper DeJean to the Jaguars. Top ranked corner in PFF. Not the top ranked for me or most people with the average draft projection where it is. And then the Bengals that will want to focus on taking care of, you'd think they'd want to focus on taking care of Joe Burrow. And that's where I immediately lean to. Do I go J.C. Latham here? I think you definitely could. But I also see Byron Murphy here. And you have Byron Murphy, who I also really think could go to the Rams. And that's where I'm trying not to look ahead when I make these decisions. But it really is a tough spot. And I think at the end of the day, I think the Bengals, maybe they still aren't super happy with their offensive line. I don't know. They've put money into it. So I think I'm going to go J.C. Latham here. I think I'm going to go J.C. Latham. I think they want to help their offensive line. It also just sets it up to have the Rams take Byron Murphy, which I really like, as to kind of be a hopefully replacement to Aaron Donald. That's big shoes to fill, but he has been used as a draft comp by many, and I think he would fit in there for the Rams. And again, a little undersized, but that's how Aaron Donald was. So if he can maybe learn something from Aaron Donald, obviously he's not there anymore, but maybe he'll come back around, be in the room, or at least the part of the staff that could, maybe saw Aaron Donald could do the same thing for Byron Murphy. I think it works there. Position and need too, so I like that fit there. And then that moves to the Steelers, which is a really easy pick for me, Jackson Powers-Johnson. That's where I see him going very often. I think, they're another team, don't really need much help on the defensive line, which is a lot of what you have here. I think you probably could see him go cornerback, but maybe they don't like Nate Wiggins that much. Um, but I think that's a fair spot for him. And then you move on to the Dolphins, which the Dolphins, they're making this one really tough here. I think with Jared Verse still being available and Laiatu Latu, I think this is probably where one of these guys come off the board. And I'm going to go with Jared Verse. I think he's just going to be more of a force. And I think you could actually, I think, if he gained a little weight, you could even utilize him inside with how strong he is. Primarily should be an edge rusher, though. But I like him for the Dolphins. I've seen a couple mocks with him going there, and I think the fit's good. Big, strong defensive end out of Florida State. And that moves us to the Eagles, where I said it would be a great place to have Cooper DeJean go. But now you've got Nate Wiggins, who falls into your lap. And I think that's probably where I'm going to go, because they're not going to need help on the defensive line. So Laiatu Latu and Jerzon Newton are off the table. Their tackles are still there. You could go Kool-Aid McKinstry and continue your Alabama defense, which would actually be fun. I just think they probably think more highly of Nate Wiggins. But see, now that I think about that, typically there will be a DB that falls. And I think because of that, and for the Eagles' love of Alabama, I'm going to have them go with Kool-Aid McKinstry here. Again, I think Nate Wiggins is the better player. But it's Georgia. Nice. Georgia is the team that they're taking all their players from. I just had a brain fart there, but that's okay. I like it. Never goes exactly how you would assume in the draft. So I think Kool-Aid McKinstry in this case goes ahead, and I think it leaves the Vikings. I think either way, I would have taken cornerback back to back here. We'll just take Nate Wiggins off the board there, and then we're all set. Like I said, you could make an argument for Kool-Aid in these to be flipped, but oh well, that's what we're going with. It's my story, and I'm sticking to it. We got Cowboys next. Although I am not a cowboy, I'm wearing a cowboy hat, and I really don't know what I would want them to do here. I think with Brian Thomas Jr. being there, I think you probably go Brian Thomas Jr. I don't know. They just lost one of their tackles too, so would they want to go Amarius Mims? They just lost Tyron Smith. They've kind of been like breeding offensive linemen over there, and I feel like they're probably happy with it, and they can probably slide somebody over. And I think with Brian Thomas Jr. getting a counterpart to CeeDee Lamb, I like that. I like that a lot. We're going to go with Brian Thomas Jr. there. I think that also leaves, Amarius Mims. See, this is tough here too, because Graham Barton and Graham Barton's a little bit more flexible, I think. I think you could probably spread him around more to tackle or even guard. Amarius Mims I like more to the Packers. And just Jerzon Newton and Laiatu Latu falling this far is just not great. But we'll take care of that soon enough here. So, yeah, I think for the Packers, we're going to go Amarius Mims, help out at tackle. They lose David Bakhtiari, who's been there forever and not really played much in these past years, but they need the help. I believe the guy's name that was playing was Zach Tom at tackle, which is not great. So Amarius Mims, big upgrade there. And then we move on to the Buccaneers, who I think I think it's too early for Zach Frazier. I think they'd probably trade back if they wanted to help their center position. And when I was doing a practice run, I ended up with Zach Frazier at 26, and that it's just too early, and that is not a good pick. I don't think that's proper value there. I think that they do need help at edge. They're not really looking for much help in the center. So I think this is where Laiatu Latu goes. He falls due to injury. I think it's a good fit over there. I think the big upside with Laiatu Latu is he is potentially the best pass rusher. His run defense just isn't great, where Jared Verse is very good in the run defense department, as well as Dallas Turner. Maybe not as good as Jared Verse, but he's a lot faster and could even be utilized as a linebacker. So you get a little bit more run defense there. But now you have the Cardinals, who thought this pick was going to be real early from Houston, and unfortunately it's not. And then at 27, they have to make a decision on where they want to go, which I actually think you could go Zach Frazier here. But I'm just trying to look through the names here and see. I think they need they need wide receiver, but they get Marvin Harrison Jr. already. They also could use help on the defensive line, and that's why I'm leaning Jerzon Newton here. Johnny Newton is what he prefers to go by, and that's what I'm going to do. We're going to go Johnny Newton here. Adonai Mitchell you could go too, but I'm gonna go with Jazon Newton here. I think he's kind of fallen a little bit. I'm pretty high on him. I think he's gonna be good in the league, but I think the Cardinals are gonna need defensive line help, and they get a top two potentially interior defensive lineman, as well as their starting generational wide receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr. But at pick 27, Jazon Newton, good value, I would say. Bills, they're definitely going receiver, and I think Adonai Mitchell is just ranked a lot higher. I actually think between Brian Thomas Jr., Adonai Mitchell, Ladd McConkey, Troy Franklin, a lot of these wide receivers I have very close. Keon Coleman, where are the rest of them? Pearsall, I love Ricky Pearsall. He's one of my favorite sleepers. Comment down below who your favorite sleeper is. Ricky Pearsall is my pick. I love Ricky Pearsall. But yeah, I think here you go Adonai Mitchell. They need a new receiver. They just lose Stephon Diggs. They need somebody. They're able to get kind of that tier two, not quite in that top three prospect range, but a lot of people think of BTJ and Adonai Mitchell as like the tier two, not super far behind the tier one. So I like Adonai Mitchell there. Then we move on to the Lions, where their offense, you've got tackle, safety. I think safety and linebacker, it's probably a little early. I don't think they go center. I don't think they go McConkey. You could go cornerback here. I don't know how I feel about taking TJ Tampa this early, but I think that probably is what it ends up being. You could go Chop Robinson too. Was it too early for Chop? See, I think I like Chop Robinson across from Aiden Hutchinson. I think that's a scary combination there. And actually, with how much I like him, Braden Fisk on the interior would be nice too. Geez, I'm really torn on this one because I don't think any of these guys, none of these are options. So, do you go Ladd? I think it's too early. I'm gonna go Chop Robinson. Chop Robinson, to me, I think pairing him with Aiden Hutchinson is scary. And being a Bears fan in the NFC North, I would not like to have to deal with that. And I think Chop Robinson has kind of just snuck his way into the back of this first round, with his combine performance and just kind of getting his name out there. So I like him there. And then we have the Ravens, who I think also need some wide receiver help. I think you could go Ladd McConkey. Troy Franklin's probably an option. Keon Coleman, wherever he was. Roman Wilson. I think they all could be on there. I'm honestly, for this one, I'm just going to go based off of your average draft position. I like Ladd McConkey's pretty significantly higher than all the other ones. So we're going to go with Ladd McConkey. I think he can sneak into the first round. So I like that there. And then probably going tackle, probably going offensive line. I like Graham Barton for the 49ers. Tyler Guyton would be another one you could make an argument for. I think the Chiefs probably wanted Ladd. I'm just going to go Graham Barton. We're going to look at his stats here first. Graham Barton. Yeah, Graham Barton's going to go to the 49ers. Like I said, I think you could probably move him to guard if you need to. And then let's see who. Oh, here we go. I know exactly what I'm doing now because the Chiefs, I hate this so much because people always get overhyped by guys like Xavier Worthy. And I think that this is actually pretty fair. I think this is a fair ranking for him here. Actually, 68 might be. That's probably pretty accurate. Maybe a little low, because that's moving him into the third round, which I don't know if he's a third. I mean, that's really where he was before the combine, and he breaks the record. But I think the scariness of pairing Xavier Worthy with Patrick Mahomes is just, with that being there, I think Xavier Legette is probably a better option. I think actually, honestly, any of these guys are better. But Xavier Worthy, I'm going to take off the board here to round out as we analyze the final draft here. But I think Xavier Worthy getting the sort of Tyreek Hill replacement, I think is huge for the Chiefs there. So they get him. Let me know what you think down below. Where did I go wrong here? Let me see. Where did I go wrong? Can I tell? I'm pretty happy with most of these. Like I said, you could switch these corners here. I think Nate Wiggins is better, and I think Nate Wiggins would probably go to the Eagles, but I just somehow thought that the Eagles take a bunch of Alabama players when it's Georgia players. But yeah, let me know what you think down below. This has been my 1.0 of mock drafts. More to come. I'm going to try to get 3 out before the draft. I'm going to definitely do another mock draft Monday next Monday, but I'd like to slot another one maybe on the weekend or something. Next one's going to have trades. Probably just going to do one with trades and then one just kind of ridiculous one where it's all possibilities, but not as accurate. So again, let me know what you think down below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe for more, and have a great day.